that the Lord has spoken, we will do and obey.
You know, you probably think of the crucifixion as, well, just a chaotic, bloody tragedy at the hands of the Roman Empire.
Right. Or, depending on your background, maybe a generalized theological event.
Exactly. Like a sort of cosmic penal substitution where someone dies and we just vaguely get forgiven.
Yes, that's the standard Western view.
Oh, what if I told you that it was actually neither of those things? Like, what if I told you that the single most famous event in human history was actually this mathematically precise, completely legally flawless execution of a 1,500-year-old marital contract?
That's a massive claim.
It is. So, welcome to your custom deep dive. If you're joining us today, whether you're sitting in traffic or taking a walk or just, prepping for a massive paradigm shift, buckle up.
Definitely buckle up for this one.
Because we are not looking at poetry today, we are not dealing in metaphors, and we are, frankly, not entertaining generalized feel-good theology.
No, we are stepping into a courtroom.
Exactly. A strict forensic legal evaluation. This is part one of a massive 6-part series that we're calling the Judicial Protocols of the Crucifixion. And today's specific focus is part one, which is the Sotah, the cup of the jealous husband.
And, if we are stepping into a courtroom, we really have to establish the rules of evidence before the first witness is even called to the stand.
Right. We need ground rules.
Exactly, because we are processing an incredibly dense, meticulously structured stack of evidentiary findings. These are legal briefs compiled by a lead apologist named Mori Uriah.
And just so you, the listener, know, throughout this entire cross-examination today, we will refer to this massive body of work simply as Uriah's notes.
Yes. Uriah's notes.
But I want to set the table right off the bat, because if we are going to dive into this material, we have to know what the operational directive is. Like, how are we actually processing these notes without just falling into the trap of arguing, centuries of religious tradition?
Or Protestant versus Catholic doctrine.
Exactly. How do we avoid that?
Well, that is the crucial first step. To evaluate this material properly, I am adopting the persona of senior legal counsel for this deep dive.
Okay, senior legal counsel. I like that.
Right, because my role has to be completely objective, intellectually unassailable, dedicated purely to the systematic processing of the covenantal and historical data.
So no warm and fuzzy pastoral summaries?
None. We're stripping away all traditional platitudes. The operational directive we are using is what Uriah's notes call the Global Umbrella Protocol.
The Global Umbrella Protocol.
Yes, which is built upon the 13-point Scripture Master Charter. This is our hermeneutical interpretation method.
Okay.
And the very first completely non-negotiable directive of this charter is zero hermenastics.
Hermenastics. I absolutely love that term.
It's very descriptive.
It really is. So we're talking about zero theological gymnastics, like no bending the ancient text backward to make it fit comfortably into our modern Western paradigms?
Exactly. Complete denominational neutrality. As senior legal counsel, my mandate is to violently strip away any Roman Catholic, Protestant, or evangelical bias lenses.
We just take the text for what it is.
We treat the source text strictly as statutory law.
Wow. Okay.
And because it is statutory law, our default must always be etymological. We have to rely strictly on the original Hebrew and Greek linguistic roots of the statutory text.
So we ignore the English dictionary.
We completely ignore modern Western anachronisms that might have, corrupted the case file over the last 2 millennia.
So for you listening, if a word in English has a lot of modern cultural baggage like law or grace or church, we toss that out the window.
Right out the window.
We go back to the original Hebrew or Greek root to see what the legal contract actually said when the ink dried.
Precisely. And all of this protocol serves the ultimate baseline, which is Rule 1 of the Master Charter.
Which is?
The ontological immutability of the Creator.
Let's unpack that. Ontological immutability.
It is the absolute foundational legal axiom that Yahweh's identity, his unity, and his nature cannot change. Period.
He is who he is.
Right. He possesses an absolute structural incapacity for perjury or breach of contract.
He literally cannot break his own laws.
Exactly. And he cannot alter his constitutional definitions of what is clean and what is unclean.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this right, if any traditional doctrine, like a really popular interpretation, if it requires the Creator to break his own law to save humanity,
then that doctrine is immediately ruled judicially invalid and struck from the record.
Wow.
A corrupt judge cannot run a righteous courtroom.
Okay, that is a massive stake in the ground, and I really want you, the listener, to keep that Rule 1 immutability in your mind for this entire deep dive.
It's the lens for everything we're about to discuss.
Right. Because the goal here isn't to find a nice moral lesson. The goal is to prove, using Uriah's notes, that the crucifixion was tyrannic jurisprudence executed perfectly. But before we can get to the cross, before a legal contract can be breached or legally resolved, we have to prove that a formal, legally binding contract actually existed in the first place.
You can't breach a contract that doesn't exist.
Exactly. So we have to rewind the clock all the way back. We have to look at the events of Mount Sinai.
And this is where we apply Rule 3 of our charter, which is historical contextualism, and Rule 6, the law of first mention.
Right, because we can't just project our modern ideas onto ancient events.
We cannot interpret a statute to mean what it never meant to the original ancient Near Eastern audience.
So when most people envision Moses coming down the mountain with the stone tablets,
They envision the founding of a religion.
right, like, here is a list of 10 moral rules to live by. Don't do this, do that.
Exactly. But according to the legal DNA in Uriah's notes, the Exodus and the events at Mount Sinai established the exact step-by-step protocol for an ancient Near Eastern marriage.
Wait, hold on. A wedding.
A statutory marriage.
I've heard preachers use the bride of Christ as a nice, romantic metaphor, but you're saying this was a literal statutory marriage protocol.
It is not a metaphor.
Let's break that down for the listener. How does a burning bush, 10 plagues, and a parted sea actually map onto an ancient marriage?
Well, in the ancient Hebraic and Near Eastern legal protocol for a marriage, there are very specific chronological stages.
Okay.
It always starts with the mohar. That's the bride price.
Mohar.
Right. In ancient commerce, the groom's family must pay a tangible price to redeem the bride from her former estate. This is especially true if she is a servant or in debt.
Which Israel definitely was in Egypt.
Exactly. In the Exodus data set, Yahweh redeems Israel from the house of bondage in Egypt, the strong hand, the plagues that decimated the Egyptian economy, and ultimately the lives of firstborn.
Oh, wow.
That was the literal legal bride price being paid to secure her release. It was a cosmic currency exchange.
Okay, I track with that. That makes total sense. So the price is paid. She is legally bought out of her slavery. What's the next step?
Next is the mikveh, the purification ritual.
Like a baptism.
Right, but specifically for a bride. A bride in the ancient Near East had to undergo a ritual immersion in living water to wash away her past, her defilement from her previous life, and physically prepare for the wedding ceremony.
So crossing the Red Sea wasn't just an escape route.
No, at Sinai, the entire nation of Israel passes through the waters of the Red Sea. Paul even refers to this later as being baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea.
That's fascinating.
And furthermore, before they are allowed to approach the base of Mount Sinai, they are explicitly commanded by Yahweh to wash their garments and sanctify themselves for 3 days.
The preparation for the wedding.
Exactly.
So we have the bride price, the mohar, and we have the purification, the mikveh. But here is where my legal alarm bells go off.
Go ahead.
A contract, any contract, especially a marriage, is completely legally void if one party is forced into it at gunpoint. Or, in this case, mountain point.
Right. Coercion invalidates the contract.
Exactly. Where's the actual consent from Israel?
That brings us to the shidduchin, the proposal, and the ketubah, the marriage contract itself.
The shidduchin and the ketubah.
Right. Yahweh proposes the covenant terms. He essentially says, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people.
That's the proposal.
Yes. And Israel, the bride, standing at the base of the mountain, gives her legal verbal consent. They respond corporately, all that Yahweh hath spoken, we will do.
I do.
Exactly. Once that explicit verbal consent is given, the ketubah is finalized.
And the ketubah is the actual written document, right? Like the prenup.
Yes, it is the written document detailing the obligations, the rights, and the household standards.
The 10 Commandments.
The Torah, and specifically the 10 words engraved on the 2 stone tablets by the finger of Elohim, serves as the literal written marriage contract. It is the household rules for the bride.
Okay, which leaves the ceremony itself. The imagery of the mountain, how does that map to the wedding? Does it map to the canopy?
Exactly. The chuppah.
The chuppah.
The wedding canopy. In Hebraic tradition, the physical structure under which the marriage ceremony is finalized.
Wow. So what was the canopy at Sinai?
The text in Exodus describes Mount Sinai being covered by a thick cloud of glory, smoke, and fire overhanging the people. That overhanging presence was the divine chuppah.
That is wild.
And under Quranic law, a marriage contract requires 2 or 3 witnesses to be legally binding.
Who were the witnesses? There was no one else there.
Yahweh explicitly calls heaven and earth forward in the book of Deuteronomy to stand as the permanent, immutable legal witnesses to this agreement.
I think we need an analogy here so you, the listener, can really feel the weight of this.
Let's do it.
You can almost compare this event at Sinai to a massive corporate merger.
Okay.
Or better yet, the most airtight, unbreakable prenuptial agreement ever drafted in the history of the universe.
Yes, that fits perfectly.
I mean, the bride price is billions of dollars, essentially the entire Egyptian empire. The contract is etched in literal stone by the CEO of the cosmos, and heaven and earth themselves are subpoenaed as the witnesses.
That analogy is highly legally sound.
Yeah.
And we know this isn't just an analogy or a metaphor, that we are retroactively projecting backward onto the text.
It's actually there.
Yes. The prophets, writing centuries later, confirmed this exact legal status. Uriah's notes highlight Jeremiah 31.32.
What does Jeremiah say?
Yahweh says, "Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was an husband unto them."
Wow. And husband unto them.
Yes, and the original Hebrew uses the exact root word balal, which means husband, lord, or master.
So it's legally defined.
This is strict statutory law. He was legally, contractually her husband.
Okay, so we have established the baseline here. We have a legally binding marriage contract, a ketubah, witnessed by the cosmos.
Right.
But a contract's strength is really only tested the moment it is violated.
And it was violated.
Right, so how did the bride violate this ketubah, and what kind of legal catastrophe did it trigger? Because things go south incredibly fast.
The breach was immediate, and it was catastrophic. We are talking about a golden calf incident in Exodus 32.
Just a few chapters later.
Exactly. This wasn't just a minor misstep or a brief moment of doubt. Legally, under tyrannic jurisprudence, this is classified as immediate, flagrant infidelity.
Cheating.
Yes. They engaged in corporate spiritual adultery with another deity just 40 days after the wedding ceremony under the canopy.
Literally, the ink, or I guess the stone dust, wasn't even dry.
No, it wasn't.
They signed the prenup and then immediately cheated on the honeymoon.
Precisely. And this infidelity fractured the legal standing of the nation.
It wasn't just God being mad.
No, it didn't just cause God to be emotionally angry. It triggered a cascade of legal consequences that define the rest of biblical history.
Let's get into those consequences.
According to the historical data tracked in Uriah's notes, this corporate unfaithfulness eventually leads to a massive structural split centuries later after the reign of King Solomon.
The divided kingdom.
Exactly. The nation fractured into 2 distinct houses, and this is where you, the listener, have to pay very close attention to the legal status of each house, because they are radically different.
Right, the northern house and the southern house. Let's pull out the legal records for both of these entities.
Let's begin with the northern house. This consisted of 10 tribes, and the biblical text often refers to them legally as Ephraim or simply Israel.
Okay, Ephraim.
Under the reign of King Jeroboam, they committed systematic spiritual adultery. They set up golden calves in Dan and Bethel.
So they repeated the Sinai breach.
Over and over. Because of this unrelenting statutory infidelity, Yahweh executed a highly specific legal action. He officially handed the northern house a bill of divorce.
Wait, a literal divorce decree?
Yes, the Hebrew term is sefer keretut. Jeremiah 3.8 is the explicit case law for this.
That's the verse.
Yahweh says, "And I saw, when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away and given her a bill of divorce."
He actually divorced them.
He legally divorced them. And as a result of this legal divorce, the northern house was scattered into the Gentile nations by the Assyrian Empire.
They were just expelled.
Completely. They completely lost their legal identity, their covenant status, and their biological markers. They were evicted from the household.
But the southern house had a different status.
Correct. The southern house, Judah, which is where we get the term Jew, also played the harlot.
Right, they weren't perfect either.
Not at all. They were also unfaithful and were eventually sent into Babylonian captivity. But, and this is a massive foundational legal distinction, Judah was never officially handed a bill of divorce.
Really? Why not?
Continuing in Jeremiah 3.8, Yahweh says that her treacherous sister Judah saw the bill of divorce given to Israel, but still went and played the harlot. Despite her unfaithfulness, Yahweh did not divorce Judah.
So they kept their status.
She remained legally bound to the original Sinai contract. She maintained the external administration of the law, the temple, the priesthood, and the Sabbath. She was punished, but she was still legally married.
Okay, let's pause. I really want the listener to digest this because this creates what Uriah's notes call the ultimate legal deadlock.
It is the central crisis of the text.
Right, because Yahweh, throughout the prophets like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, he promises to restore and remarry all of Israel, right? To bring the whole family, both the north and the south, back together into one unified kingdom.
He makes that promise repeatedly.
But there is a massive problem written into his own constitutional law.
It is an insurmountable legal wall. You find it in Deuteronomy 24.4.
What does it say?
It dictates a strict, uncompromising statutory prohibition regarding divorce. The law states that if a husband divorces his wife and she leaves and becomes defiled by another man.
Which the northern house did by worshiping other gods.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The statute says her former husband may not take her again to be his wife. It explicitly calls it an abomination before Yahweh and says it causes the land to sin.
Wait, stop. I need to make sure I and everyone listening to this actually understands the gravity of this.
It is a profound legal bind.
You are saying God is legally trapped by his own law.
Yes.
If Rule 1 is the ontological immutability of the Creator, meaning he literally cannot break his own rules.
Right.
And Deuteronomy 24 explicitly forbids him from taking his divorced bride back, how on earth does he legally rescue her without becoming a corrupt lawbreaker?
That is the question.
Because if he just waves his hand from heaven and says, hey, it's fine, I love you, I forgive you, come back to the house, he violates Deuteronomy 24.4. He commits perjury, he commits an abomination.
Exactly. If he bypasses his own law, the cosmos collapses under the weight of a hypocritical judge.
Wow.
Justice ceases to exist. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you've just articulated the exact legal crisis of the entire biblical narrative.
How does God save Israel legally?
How does a holy, immutable, perfect judge justify a guilty, divorced, and defiled party without corrupting his own justice?
And how does he do it?
To solve this deadlock, Yahweh had to utilize another highly specific, incredibly complex piece of tyrannic jurisprudence.
Okay.
A law dealing specifically with suspected marital infidelity.
And this is where things get absolutely wild. Enter the Sotah.
Yes, the Sotah Protocol, found in Numbers chapter 5, verses 11 through 31. This is the trial of the bitter water, the cup of the jealous husband.
Walk us through the setup of this trial, because if you just casually read Numbers 5, it sounds ancient, it sounds bizarre, and it is definitely not something you see in a modern family court.
No, it is a divine trial by ordeal designed for a very specific legal impasse.
What's the setup?
The setup is this. A husband suspects his wife of adultery. The spirit of jealousy comes upon him. However, under tyrannic law, you cannot execute a death penalty or a conviction without 2 or 3 physical witnesses.
Right, you need evidence.
Exactly. But if he suspects her, and she has defiled herself in secret, but there are no witnesses to legally convict her?
Then what? The human court is just deadlocked.
The human court is deadlocked.
Yeah.
So she is subjected to the Sotah trial to let Yahweh himself act as the judge, jury, and executioner.
Okay, what are the actual mechanics of the trial? Like, if I'm standing in the tabernacle courtyard, what am I watching happen?
The priest takes holy water and puts it in an earthen vessel, a clay jar.
An earthen vessel, okay.
He then goes to the floor of the tabernacle, takes dust from the holy ground, and mixes it into the water.
Dust and water.
But here is the most critical forensic part of the ritual. The priest writes the actual literal curses of the law on a scroll.
Like, writes them out with ink.
Yes. Then he literally washes or blots that wet ink, the written curses, into the bitter water.
So the text of the law itself, the actual ink, dissolves into the drink.
Yes. The accused wife is then forced to drink this concoction.
That sounds terrible.
The statute calls it the bitter water that brings a curse. The me hamerim hamerem in Hebrew.
The bitter water that brings a curse.
The execution of the verdict is entirely physiological.
Meaning her body reacts to it.
Exactly. If she's innocent, the water does nothing. She is cleared of all charges, she goes home, and she remains fertile.
But if she's guilty?
If she is guilty of the adultery, the curse activates internally. Her belly swells, her thigh rots, and she bears the statutory death penalty among her people.
the ink of the broken contract literally kills her.
That's precisely what happened.
That is intensely visceral. It's like it's like a divine forensic polygraph test.
It is.
But instead of a machine reading your heart rate and sweat glands, the literal ink of the marriage contract becomes a physical, biological poison to the guilty party.
That is a perfect legal analogy. The physical ingestion of the broken contract's curses.
Right.
And Uriah's notes point out a fascinating historical precedent for this that most people completely miss.
Wait, what precedent?
Moses actually executed a primitive, corporate prototype of this exact ritual at Sinai.
Wait, really?
Yeah. When he came down the mountain with the first set of stone tablets and saw the golden calf.
Oh, right.
What did he do? Exodus 32:20 says he took the calf, burned it in the fire, ground it into powder.
Like the dust of the tabernacle floor?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He cast that dust into the water and forced the corporate bride, the Israelites, to drink it.
Oh, wow. He was executing a corporate Sotah trial right there at the base of the mountain.
He absolutely was.
Because their guilt as a corporate bride was absolute. I mean, they had just cheated. And Moses, as the mediator, forces them to ingest the bitter water of their own infidelity.
Right. And because Israel's subsequent historical guilt was documented relentlessly by the prophets over the next 1,000 years, the Sotah Protocol had to be legally executed at the end of the age to satisfy the courtroom requirements.
Because God is the jealous husband.
Yes. The penalty for the bride's adultery was death, and the jealousy of the husband had to be legally resolved. She had to drink the cup.
Okay, listener, I want you to lean in right now, because this is where the puzzle pieces just violently snap together.
This is the crux of the brief.
This is where Uriah's notes map the legal data from Numbers 5 perfectly onto Golgotha, proving that Yeshua Jesus was executing the Sotah trial in real time.
This is where the depth of the jurisprudence is truly staggering. Let's look at the 3 precise execution data points from the gospel accounts.
And we're cross-examining this against the Sotah code, right?
Exactly.
Let's start with data point 1, the evaluation in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yeshua is in the garden, sweating blood, and he prays, "Oh, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me."
And, traditional theology almost universally treats the cup as a generalized poetic metaphor for suffering or emotional distress.
Right. But under Rule 3, historical contextualism, this courtroom does not allow for metaphors.
No hermeneutics.
None. This is the specific prophetic cup of fury tied directly to the bitter water of the Sotah.
He's actually talking about the literal cup from Numbers 5.
Yes. He, acting as the representative proxy for the corporate bride, is evaluating the judicial curse he's about to ingest.
He is staring at the earthen vessel mixed with dust and ink.
Legally speaking, yes.
Okay, I can see that. That makes sense. But prove it to me structurally. That takes us to the cross, right? Data point 2, the first offering.
In Matthew 27:34, right before he is crucified, he has offered sour wine mingled with gall.
Okay.
Now, let's apply Rule 2, original language primacy. The Greek word used for gall in the text is choli.
Choli.
Yes. If you trace that back to its root, it translates the Hebrew word rosh, which is a bitter, poisonous herb. Think hemlock or wormwood.
Wow.
So he is literally physically presented with a bitter, poisonous liquid. The text says he tastes it, but he refuses to drink it right then.
Stop. You were telling me the sour wine on the sponge wasn't just random Roman cruelty or a Roman painkiller.
It was not a painkiller.
Because every Good Friday sermon I've ever heard my entire life says the soldiers offered him a painkiller and he heroically refused it so he could feel the full weight of the pain.
That is the tradition, yes.
You're saying that's completely wrong. You're saying it was a mathematically precise fulfillment of a poison water trial from Numbers 5. Because, that sounds like a massive leap.
It's not a leap. It is strict textual etymology. The Roman painkiller tradition is exactly the kind of Western anachronism the Master Charter forces us to strip away.
Okay, break that down.
The Romans did use Pascha water and vinegar as a cheap drink for soldiers, but Matthew explicitly adds the choli, the rosh,
the bitter
a bitter poison. It was not a painkiller. It was the physical presentation of the me hammerum, the bitter water.
And he refuses it. Why?
He refuses to drink it at that exact moment because he recognizes the compound, but the legal timing isn't right. He waits.
He has to be on the tree.
He cannot drink it until the exact legal moment of exchange is realized on the cross.
Which brings us to the third data point, the consumption.
Yes.
While he is hanging on the cross, the Gospel of John says, knowing that all things were now accomplished, meaning the legal prerequisites were met, he declares, I thirst.
And they bring him the sponge. They fill a sponge with sour wine, and they put it on a stalk of hyssop and put it to his mouth.
The hyssop.
This is where we must highlight the profound statutory significance of the botanical marker.
The hispos in Greek.
Exactly. The hyssop is not just a random stick they found on the ground. In Torah law, hyssop is strictly reserved for purification rituals.
Like what kind of rituals?
It is used for cleansing from defilement, for cleansing a leper, for the ashes of the red heifer, and most importantly, for applying the blood of the Passover lamb to the doorposts.
Oh, wow. So it's literally an instrument of legal purification.
Exactly. By using hyssop to absorb the bitter liquid, Yeshua is acting as the earthen vessel.
He becomes the clay jar from Numbers 5.
He is physically, biologically absorbing the blotted curses of the broken ketubah through the instrument of purification.
He takes the bitter water into his own body.
He takes the curse of the unfaithful wife into his own flesh. The poison intended for the adulteress goes into him.
That is just staggering.
And the very moment he ingests the sour wine from the hyssop, what is his final pronouncement? He says, tetelestai.
Which we usually hear translated in English as, it is finished.
Yes, but tetelestai is not just a tired sigh of completion. It is a highly specific judicial and commercial term from the ancient Greco-Roman world.
Like a stamp on a document.
You would write it across a receipt or a legal document. It means a debt is completely discharged, a contract is fully executed, or a sentence is paid in full.
Paid in full.
When the bitter water entered his vessel, he slammed the courtroom gavel down. Tetelestai.
The Sotah Trial of Numbers 5 was completely executed.
The curse was absorbed. The ink was washed away.
Okay, I need everyone listening to take a breath because this is a massive paradigm shift. But if you are looking at Uriah's notes along with us right now, look at Section 5.
Yes, Section 5.
Because I have a major logical problem here.
Lay it out.
If Yeshua drank the bitter water, who exactly was dying on the cross?
That is the title question.
Because if he is the husband, Yahweh in the flesh, why is he drinking the bride's punishment? I mean, the husband doesn't drink the soda water, the wife does. How does this legally free the bride?
This raises the most important question of the entire trial, and it takes us straight into the core of Section 5, the dual proxy cross-merger and Romans 7.
The dual proxy cross-merger, that sounds like corporate law.
It is very much like corporate law, to achieve total legal justification for the bride without violating Rule 1.
Without God breaking his own immutability law.
Right. Both parties to the broken contract had to be terminated. To accomplish this, Yeshua utilized an ancient Hebrew halakhic principle called the shaliach.
The law of agency.
Exactly. The foundational rule of the shaliach is, a man's agent is like the man himself.
How does that work in practice?
In ancient Near Eastern commerce, if a merchant in Jerusalem sends a shaliach, an authorized agent, to Damascus to buy silk,
Okay.
and that agent signs a contract, the merchant in Jerusalem is legally bound as if he signed it himself. If the agent is robbed, the merchant is robbed.
So the actions of the agent are literally attributed to the sender.
Yes. Yeshua operated as a flawless dual proxy. He executed a cross-merger of identities on the tree. Let's break down the two proxies.
Okay, let's start with proxy A, the husband.
Yeshua acts as the shaliach, the direct, authorized proxy and emissary for Yahweh, the husband. He carries the absolute fullness of the divine authority.
Right.
When the shaliach dies on the cross, the original Sinai ketubah, the marriage contract, is legally dissolved.
Because the husband died.
Because in Quranic jurisprudence and in almost all ancient law, a marriage contract is only valid as long as the husband lives. When the husband dies, the contract is terminated.
And this is the genius of the maneuver.
It truly is.
His death permanently cancels the Deuteronomy 24.4 prohibition against remarrying the divorced northern house.
Exactly.
I mean, the law that said her former husband cannot take her back after she is defiled is nullified because that specific husband status under that specific Sinai contract is legally dead.
The prohibition dies with him.
That solves the husband's side of the deadlock. The creator is free to remarry the divorced house without breaking his own law.
Correct. But what about the bride?
Right, because she still has a criminal record for adultery.
She still has a death sentence hanging over her head.
So that is proxy B.
Operating under the title Son of Man, Yeshua acts as the ultimate corporate representative,
The proxy for the bride.
the biological and legal proxy for the adulterous bride, the seed of Abraham.
Okay.
When he drinks the Sotah cup and dies, the statutory death penalty for her adultery is fully executed upon him.
Because he is her agent.
Right. The old adulterous identity of the bride literally dies with him on the cross. Her criminal record is wiped completely blank because the sentence was fully carried out.
You cannot prosecute a dead woman.
You cannot prosecute a dead woman.
This is just unbelievable. For you listening, imagine a brilliant corporate legal maneuver.
It's the best way to visualize it.
Imagine a CEO who sees that a subsidiary company is failing, drowning in billions of dollars of debt, and completely guilty of massive corporate fraud.
A total liability.
Exactly. And instead of just letting the subsidiary burn or illegally waiving the debt, which would be a crime, the CEO steps down from his throne.
Right.
He legally absorbs all the bankruptcy and all the criminal liability of that subsidiary into his own personal body. He goes to federal prison, he dies there, and in doing so, he dissolves the parent company entirely so the old bylaws no longer apply.
The slate is wiped clean.
Then he resurrects, reincorporates a brand new company the next day, completely debt-free and clear of all prior indictments, and invites the employees back.
That is a phenomenal modern translation of the jurisprudence at work here.
It's a cross-merger.
The debt isn't just ignored or swept under the rug. It is legally absorbed, prosecuted, and discharged through death.
That is so precise.
And this exact framework is what Shaul, who most people know as the Apostle Paul, is arguing in his deeply complex legal brief in Romans chapter 7.
Romans 7. Romans 7 is huge.
It is highly debated.
I feel like this chapter gets debated endlessly in theology circles. Everyone uses it to say, look, we don't have to follow the Old Testament anymore.
They do. And the mainstream evangelical paradigm usually claims that Romans 7 means believers are completely free from the moral obligations of the Torah. They argue that the law itself died on the cross.
But if the law dies, that violates Rule 1, immutability.
Exactly. Yahweh's constitutional standards of clean and unclean cannot change. If the law is abolished, we have total lawlessness, or what the Greek text calls anomia.
And a holy God cannot author anomia.
Never.
So what is Shaul actually saying in Romans 7? Because, the text literally says, dead to the law.
We have to apply etymological correction here.
Okay.
Shaul writes, "Wherefore, my brethren, ye also are become dead to the law by the body of Christ, that ye should be married to another."
Right.
The Greek phrase here is ethanachute to nomok. It does not mean the law itself is dead or abolished.
What does it mean?
It means you, the subject, are dead to the condemnation and the death penalty generated by violating the contract.
Oh. You are dead to the consequences, not the rules themselves.
Precisely.
It's like the speeding ticket was paid, but the speed limit still exists.
Right. And look at the context. Shaul explicitly uses the marriage metaphor in the very same chapter.
Oh, he does.
He says, "A woman is bound by the law to her husband as long as he lives. If the husband dies, she is loosed from the law of her husband."
The law of marriage doesn't die, the husband dies.
Exactly. Because the husband Yeshua, via proxy A, died, the wife is loosed from the condemnation of the old contract, allowing her to be legally married to the resurrected Messiah.
Okay, this brings us to a massive question about identity. And listener, this is where the rubber meets the road for modern Christianity.
It changes everything about identity.
Because to fully understand this courtroom victory, we really have to know exactly who is sitting in the defendant's chair. Like, who is Shaul actually writing to in these letters?
We have to establish a jurisdiction.
Right, because if we get the identity of the defendant wrong, the whole legal ruling collapses. We're essentially applying the pardon to the wrong inmate.
This is what Uriah's notes call the fishbowl logic.
The fishbowl logic.
It is a foundational tenet of tyrannic jurisprudence. You simply cannot enforce a contract's penalties on someone who never signed the contract.
Makes sense.
Shaul explicitly states in Romans 3.19, "Now we know that what things soever the law saith, it saith to them who are under the law."
So basically, it's like me getting a ticket in the mail for breaking a German speeding law while I'm driving my car in Ohio.
Exactly.
I'm not in the German fishbowl. I am not a German citizen, so the penalty is legally void. If you aren't in the fishbowl, the rules of the fishbowl don't apply to you.
Exactly. Biological Roman pagans people in ancient Gaul or Britannia with absolutely zero ancestral biological or covenantal link to Abraham or Sinai were never married to Yahweh.
They weren't at the mountain.
They never stood at the mountain. They never signed the ketubah. They never broke it.
So they weren't divorced?
Therefore, they couldn't possibly be dead to the law, as Scholl describes, because they were never under its specific marital death penalty for adultery to begin with. You cannot be divorced from a contract you never signed.
You cannot be redeemed from a curse you were never under.
Precisely.
But wait. If that's true, who are all the Gentiles that Scholl is constantly preaching to?
This is where we have to reevaluate the text.
Because I thought the whole point of the New Testament was that Israel failed, they rejected the Messiah, so God pivoted, and the message went out to the rest of the world. The Greeks, the Romans, the Gentiles. The Gentile church.
This requires us to completely dismantle the Roman Catholic and Protestant concept of the Gentile parenthesis.
Gentile parenthesis.
Yes, the idea that a separate entity called the church replaced Israel. We have to look at the true historical identity of the Greek in the text.
Okay, let's do it.
The Greek word helon, which is translated simply as Greek in our English Bibles, did not merely mean a biological non-Israelite. Historically, in the first century, it primarily referred to Hellenized Israelites.
Hellenized meaning they adopted Greek culture.
Yes, and we have to trace the history. Remember the northern house of Israel, Ephraim, the 10 tribes.
The ones who got the bill of divorce.
Right. They were handed a bill of divorce and scattered into the Assyrian and Babylonian nations centuries earlier.
Okay.
By the time of the Maccabi era, which you can read about in 1 Maccabees chapter 1, massive numbers of these Israelites had completely assimilated
Into Greek culture.
Alexander the Great and Antiochus Epiphanes forced Greek culture upon them. They lost their identity, they stopped circumcising their children, they stopped keeping the Sabbath.
They built Greek gymnasiums.
Yes, and they lived entirely like Greeks. They were biologically the seed of Abraham, but legally, because of their apostasy and their divorce, they were classified as ethnos, nations, Gentiles.
So when the Apostle Paul says the gospel goes to the Jew first and also to the Greek,
He is being very legally specific.
he isn't talking about two completely different species of humanity. He actually means going to the married southern kingdom of Judah first, the Jews who kept the law, and then retrieving the divorced, scattered, Hellenized northern kingdom of Ephraim who look and act exactly like Greeks.
That is the exact legal mechanism. Yeshua himself stated his mission clearly. I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
He literally said that.
Yes, the redemption of the world, the cosmos, is the mechanical, legal byproduct of reclaiming the scattered house of Israel from every nation where they had been mixed and sifted like wheat.
Wow, that makes the wall of separation that Paul talks about in Ephesians 2 makes so much more sense.
It changes everything about Ephesians 2.
How so?
Ephesians 2.1 states that Yeshua broke down the middle wall of separation between the Jew and the Gentile.
Right, and mainstream theology assumes this wall is the Torah itself.
They say Jesus broke down the law so everyone could be one. But the Torah never had a wall keeping foreigners out.
It didn't.
The Torah explicitly states multiple times that there is one law for the native born and for the stranger who wishes to join the covenant.
So if God didn't build the wall, what was the wall?
The wall was the soreg.
The soreg.
It was a literal, physical stone wall built in the temple courtyard in Jerusalem by man-made Pharisaic decrees. Archaeologists have literally dug up the warning stones from this wall.
Are you serious?
Absolutely. These decrees, the Greek word Paul uses is dogmason, meaning human dogmas, legally barred returning Hellenized Israelites or anyone deemed physically uncircumcised by strict Pharisaic standards from entering to worship.
A literal wall.
The warning stones literally threatened death to any foreigner who crossed the line.
So it's like a VIP rope line at a club that wasn't ordered by the club owner, Yahweh, but was set up by rogue bouncers, the Pharisees, keeping out people who actually had a right to be in the house.
Brilliant analogy, yes. When Scholl says Yeshua abolished the law of commandments contained in ordinances, he explicitly uses the word dogmason.
Not the Torah.
No. Yeshua abolished the man-made dogma, the soreg, that kept the two houses apart. He tore down the bouncer's rope line. He did not abolish the constitutional law of his father.
Okay, we are in the home stretch here. Section 7 of Uriah's notes.
The restoration.
Right. With the old contract dissolved by the Shaleach's death on the cross, and both houses Judah and Ephraim legally cleared of all charges, what comes next? I mean, they don't just remain single forever.
No, they have to enter the new covenant.
Right.
And because their historical violations were different, their legal reentry paths look distinct even though they converge perfectly in the resurrected husband.
Let's start with Judah, the southern house. The Jews...
Judah was never officially divorced. So when the husband died on the cross, Her legal status simply transitioned to a widow.
A widow, right.
In the resurrection, she experiences a vow renewal. She moves from the heavy, external, letter-driven administration of the law back to its original internal intent.
And Ephraim, the northern house, the Hellenized Greeks.
Because Ephraim was officially divorced with a Sefer Keratit, the legal barrier of Deuteronomy 24.4 had to be removed by the husband's death.
Which it was.
So for Ephraim, it is a complete remarriage. They are brought back in from the nations where they were scattered.
And brought together.
Yes. Together, Judah and Ephraim are stitched back together to form what Scholl calls the one new man, the undivided, restored 12-tribe kingdom of Israel.
And this restoration completely changes the priesthood, doesn't it?
It elevates it.
Because I can hear the objection right now. Yeshua wasn't from the priestly tribe of Levi. He was from Judah. So how can he be the high priest of this new unified house?
This is where we see the magnificent restoration of the Melchizedek order.
The Melchizedek order.
If we apply the law first mentioned to the priesthood, the original intent at Sinai was for the whole nation to be a kingdom of firstborn priests.
Right.
This is the Melchizedek template, the priesthood of the firstborn son. But because of the golden calf infidelity, the firstborn disqualified themselves.
So they lost the priesthood.
The priesthood was severely downgraded. It was temporarily transferred to the tribe of Levi as an external administrative custodian to manage a rebellious, stiff-necked people.
So the Levitical priesthood, with all its specific rituals, was a concession. It wasn't the original plan.
It was a protective legal addendum.
Yeah.
But Yeshua, being of the tribe of Judah, bypassed this temporary Levitical concession.
How?
His resurrection as the firstborn son, the Bechor, from the dead, automatically superseded the Levites and reactivated the original, permanent, pre-Levitical Melchizedek order.
Wow.
He is now the high priest mediating the exact same constitutional Torah, but directly to the people.
The prophetic patterning here is just, it's stunning.
It is flawless.
For you listening, think about the 2 sets of stone tablets at Sinai. Moses went up the mountain and got the first set of tablets written by the finger of God. Those tablets were entirely divine.
Yes.
But they were broken at the bottom of the mountain because of the golden calf. So Moses has to hew a second set of stones out of the earth himself, and God writes the exact same laws on them. That perfectly patterns the new covenant, doesn't it?
It is a flawless blueprint. The law itself is exactly the same. The 10 words didn't change between the first and second tablets.
God didn't invent new rules.
No. But the vessel changed. In the new covenant, the law is not written on external cold stone. It is written by the Holy Spirit onto the softened, prepared stone of the human heart, hewn out of the earth.
That's beautiful.
It is the exact same Torah, but administered through an internal Melchizedek priesthood.
And this all culminates in the physical blueprint of the kingdom, the end of the book. The New Jerusalem described in Revelation chapter 21.
Yes.
If anyone wants definitive architectural proof that there is no separate destiny for a disconnected Gentile church that supposedly replaced Israel, you just have to look at the architecture of the New Jerusalem.
It is the capital city of the bride.
It has exactly 12 gates. And what is written on those gates? The text says the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel, 3 gates on the north, 3 on the south, 3 on the east, 3 on the west.
There is no exception.
Let that sink in. There is no 13th gate.
There's no Gentile gate. There is no Baptist gate or Catholic gate. There is no special side entrance for those who think they replaced the law of Israel.
So how does someone from the nations get in?
If a human being from the nations wants to enter the eternal presence of the Creator, they must be legally grafted into the Commonwealth of Israel. They must come through one of the 12 tribes.
So synthesizing all of this for you, the listener, the sheer scale of the legal jurisprudence executed on the cross is staggering.
It really is unmatched in legal history.
This wasn't about starting a brand new religion in Rome with different rules and different holidays.
Not at all.
It was a dual proxy cross-merger designed to mathematically satisfy the Sotah Trial of the bitter water.
Yes.
It was designed to absorb the death penalty of the broken Sinai Ketubah and resurrect a unified 12-tribe bride under a Melchizedek administration, all without the Creator ever breaking a single statute of his own tyrannic law.
It is the ultimate testament to the absolute immutability and the perfect justice of the Creator. He did not bend his own rules. He did not cheat. He fulfilled them with agonizing forensic precision.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to chew on until next time.
Let's hear it.
If Yeshua, acting as the proxy for both the husband and the bride, went to such extraordinary, mathematically precise lengths, literally drinking the bitter water, absorbing the curse, and dying to satisfy the courtroom requirements just to preserve and uphold the Torah during his execution.
Right.
What does that mean for how we are supposed to view and live out that exact same constitutional law today?
If the judge respected the law enough to die for its parameters, claiming it is abolished today is a profound misunderstanding of the courtroom.
Absolutely. Well, deep dive number 1 is officially closed, but we are just getting started. Take some time to process Uriah's notes, reread Numbers 5, and make sure you join us for our next deep dive, part 2 of the Judicial Protocols of the Crucifixion, where we step right back into the courtroom. Thanks for listening.